Welcome again to this edition of the Small, Medium-Sized Business Strategy, Marketing, and Brand Workshop. Today, we have another interview, and this one is with Bill Spohn from Trutech Tools out of Ohio. And I will start the presentation, and because a lot of that stuff will get covered in the presentation and the video. So with that, let's get started. And you can see that this is an interview with Bill Spohn on continuous growth and change. My name is Frank Spivak, and for more than 30 years, I've helped organizations enhance their image through brand, engage their customers with marketing, and enrich their businesses through strategy. Over my time in the business world, I've been president, chief marketing officer, director, senior management team. I'm currently a writer, author, speaker, trainer, coach, consultant. I am certainly a lifelong learner, something that I would encourage everyone to be, and a motorcycle rider and trainer. And with that, I will start our interview. Hello again to everyone. This is the Strategy, Marketing, and Brand Workshop. This is a free opportunity for you to learn some things about strategy and marketing and brand for small and medium-sized businesses. And my name is Frank Spivak. And today I have as my guest, Bill Spohn. Bill is the president and CEO of Trutech Tools in Ohio. And Bill and I go back 30 years, I think. Pretty much days to when Bill was with Backrack Instruments and Testo, and certainly during his time with Trutech Tools. To give you a little bit of information, Bill does hold a bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering and is a registered professional engineer in Pennsylvania. He spent his career on creating, designing, and marketing a wide variety of test and measurement products that worked for technicians in the field, including 10 years at Backrack and Testo. Bill is all about science, comfort, health, and energy efficiency. He's worked with a number of organizations that create standards for both the building industry and the heating and ventilating industry. And he holds 4 U.S. patents on instrumentation design. He regularly consults, teaches, and writes on product applications in the HVACR world, building science, healthy homes, indoor air quality, and weatherization. Bill is a smart guy, a great listener, and speaks with passion in a language we can all understand. He shares his knowledge in 2 podcasts, Building HVAC Science and Res Talk, and sits on the board of a number of organizations, the Building Performance Association, Green Home Institute, and Solar United Neighbors of Pennsylvania. And most recently, one of the things that a project that Bill has always been very passionate about, he built a modular high-performance home, a net zero home near Pittsburgh. You can follow his exploits on Facebook. A truly interesting design with being net zero and having solar in the Rust Belt, which it doesn't happen very often, but it's possible, and Bill has proven that. Mm-hmm. So, Bill, thank you very much for being on this program with me, and it's been a pleasure to be with you at trade shows and meetings and things that we've done for a number of years. So, give us a little idea of what Trutech Tools does and sells.
Sure, Frank, and thank you for inviting me. And we don't get to see each other enough anymore. It used to be a lot more. Always appreciate your laugh and your smile and your approach to business. So congratulations on what you're doing now with your business, your consulting business now. So Trutech Tools, a lot of people get confused if we are a manufacturer of products. And I like to say, a little tongue-in-cheeky, we don't make anything except make people happy with getting them their products on time, the right products. So we spend a lot of time trying to be very clear with customers to understand their needs, their applications, to match them up with the right products if we have them, and if not, to send them elsewhere where they could get them. And then to be clear what those products are, how many we have in stock, what the price is, what the delivery estimate is, and we just focus on clarity, clarity, clarity. We went through a management exercise recently, and we talked about attention to detail is a quality that we consider one of our core values, and we like to express every day. The products themselves are tools and test instruments for the built environment. As Frank mentioned, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, to set up, to maintain, to service that equipment. And this would include instrumentation as well as tools that are manually used to create, assemble, and disassemble systems. So all kinds of meters, probes, hand tools, anything we like to say like that would go out with a technician and come back with them to their truck. Things that get left behind, equipment that gets installed. Pretty much we don't deal in equipment. And then there's a whole subset that we deal with in building performance, which is might be thought of as weatherization, but it's how to ascertain if a building structure, how it's managing the thermal and air, the air moving through it, inside and outside of it, doing things like a blower door test to see what the air leakage is, looking at thermal imaging to see where the thermal leakage is, testing out systems inside the house. So it's pretty much about the built environment. We'll say housing and commercial space.
Yeah, and that's how, well, I guess both of us started out that way. You with Backrack. Backrack was at that time really known for combustion analyzers. They were probably the leader in the world for combustion analyzers. Absolutely vital to an HVAC technician, whether it's residential or commercial building. And I was doing airflow instruments, so the combination was always a great conversation that we could have with a number of people. And then now several years ago, you also bought an HVAC parts company, a local business, and that's helped your business as well, right? Because it's a related but an expanded product line.
Actually, I want to call it a mistake, but I'll call it a lesson. It seemed like a good idea. It seemed like a good price. It was called Fiery Chill. And actually it ended up we overstepped our bounds in terms of understanding that we could still fulfill like we had before with the discrete products versus the equipment and parts. We needed to have a very wide variety of parts and equipment, and it really didn't work out. There were a couple of tool lines that were embedded within that company that we brought over. One of them is Hillmore. And we always said we got a forklift, a water cooler, the Hillmore brand, and Matt Kolker, who's now our purchasing manager because he worked for them. So 4 or 5 things that we pulled out of that one. We absorbed it, tried to manage that inventory, actually fire sale a lot of it off, and closed the brand and just stuck with Trutech. So I call it a big lesson in understanding what we're all about and how we relate to customers and where our strength is, where our hedgehog principle is.
Yeah, and I think that's always the case too. Is that some people get locked, or they say that they can't expand, or they do things, and then if it doesn't work, they're devastated. But there's always a lesson to learn. I guess that's the way I've always viewed life.
Yes, absolutely.
Something happens. Well, now you know not to do it.
Right.
Now you know not to do it that way again.
Right. And I'm not ashamed or afraid to talk about that experience publicly, because I think other people can then reflect when they hear the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've had conversations over the last few years. Your business was always on a growth path. You have been on the Inc. 5000 list 6 out of 7 years.
Great.
Give us a little idea of what that means. What does it mean to how do you qualify to be on the Inc. 5000 list?
Sure. So the Inc. 5000 list is privately owned businesses in the US. You submit a form that has to be certified by an external body like our CPA about our income for the last 3 years. And that income has to show a percentage of growth over those 3 years. And then they basically take all the entries and they stack them up and they start, they put them in sequential order. Actually, I think it might be today that they're officially releasing the results, so I can talk about it, August 16th, 2022. And I think our number is 4112. So we're just barely on the list, but we've done that for 6 out of the last 7 years. And I think we missed 2017 because I forgot to do the entry. We're just so busy serving customers. So because I think our percentage was good, but so it's things like 100% growth in 3 years. That's the kind of number in income, growth in income, that would get you on the list in the position of like 4,000. There are some people who are way up near the top of the list and they'll have thousands of percent growth. Those are usually companies that have gone through a radical change. Perhaps they're a startup that's doing really well. But I think, and actually the letters that they send us, Inc. sends us, Inc. is a magazine, talks about business. The letter they send us says it's a rare treat to be on the list so many times, because every time our level goes up. So that amount of growth has to be 100% growth in the last 3 years. When you're $1 million is one thing. When you're 12 million, it's another thing. When you're 20 million, it's another thing. So we're up there in the last year's, we were just shy of 24 million in sales.
Yeah, so that is remarkable. And I think exactly what you're saying, you will see the guys up at the top of the list that have a 7,000% increase. Well, then you never see them again. And so having consistent growth, that is always the challenge, right? We want to keep our businesses growing. We want to keep ourselves busy. We want to keep our employees busy and make money in the process. So consistent growth is been the elusive thing for a lot of people, and being able to achieve that on the Inc. list is phenomenal. So just an applause to you, and I know it's not just you. I know you'll be the first one to say that. But you are the leader of the organization, and I know many of the guys there, and they're just terrific individuals, and they're really dedicated to helping and making the company grow.
And I just looked it up. It's 4121, so not 4112. I had the numbers reversed. So
close enough. So then also talk about the fact that this number includes having to go through the pandemic period. And certainly when all of the businesses were shutting down in March and April of that year, you experienced the same thing. But it was also an opportunity for you to reflect and look at the business, right? And
sure.
And actually spend some time doing some things that you hadn't done before. You knew you should do them, but it's the kind of thing where, well, let's put it, I'll get to it. So talk about that time with the downdraft and then the uplift.
Sure. It was like, I remember very distinctly, it was like right around St. Patrick's Day, because we were having a family party with extended family. And it was like, remember that as like the last time for a couple of years that we got together. So it was right around March 15th, we noticed that our sales were starting to drop off, and they continued to go down. And after about a week of it, we stepped back, and then we like snapshotted our P&L, and we looked at what kind of expenses were under our control that we could keep the doors open, literally, and keep everyone employed. And that would include Eric and I taking salary cuts, dipping into our line of credit, whatever it took. So we had things at various stages. Like if we hit this percentage decline, we go into this activity or this resource. And so we'd stepped it out in like 3 or 4 stages and basically said, as we head towards the bottom, what can we do to stay in business and continue to serve our customers, but also continue to employ our employees? Because like you said, we have such a great team, we didn't want to lose anyone. Fortunately for us, it rebounded. It's literally like we were on a path up through March 15th. It dropped off, and then we resumed the same trajectory as of about April 15th. It was really pretty amazing. It only was about a month of a drop off for us. And then we basically, got back to work or continued to work. And we're searching for some of the explanations as to why we experienced that. And, our assumptions were, one is some of the places you can buy our products are bricks and mortar wholesalers. They're stores, basically. The stores were dealing with ramifications of, is it transmitted by contact? Is it transmitted by aerosols? Can we have people in our facilities? What happens to our workers? So there are all kinds of confusion and blockages to having face-to-face transactions for our products. Being that we were shipping, there was minimal face-to-face transaction between us and our customers, almost none at all. And then we were also sort of in stride with understanding and working in an e-commerce type business, and had been for years at that point. So we sort of knew the ins and outs, and for us, it was just a little bit of like crank up the volume. And I think for bricks and mortar wholesalers who were trying to step off into e-commerce, that was something totally new. Like, where do we go? What do we do? How do we set things up? So we were able to move in a space that our typical competitors weren't able to move into. They couldn't get into our lane. The other thing is around
you were also pretty dominant at that point, because you've been in the business for probably 9, 10 years?
Yeah, it was 15 years this year. So that was 2 years ago. 13 years, 12, 13 years.
Yeah. So you had built the infrastructure. You guys had gone through several platform adjustments, and several people optimizing the site for that. So you were ideally prepared for that.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm for us to survive and actually thrive. We saw a big uptick in sales volume. We inquired with our customer service team, like, who are these people? And like, what can we figure out from the conversations that we had with them? And so a lot of it was like, this is my first time buying on the internet, buying anything like this on the internet.
Oh, jeez.
So we just, and the other thing we did, it's typical for internet for e-commerce businesses to have free shipping above a certain threshold. We actually went from, we were $99 like 2 years before that. Then we went to $79 as our threshold. And then we made the decision in the middle of the pandemic to go to $49. So those smaller things that you need to get, you don't have to worry about paying shipping. And, we'll be clear about whether we have them in stock, and we're going to give you a very good experience. Now, the thought was, as people come out of the pandemic and begin routine purchasing and things like that, that they'll remember the good experience. So we think that's happened because it's been a net bump that's continued to grow over the last couple of years.
Yeah. And you've never been afraid to get outside perspectives on your business. Over the years, I think I want to say probably 4 or 5 years ago, you said that you dealt with local university master's program, had them come into your business and do kind of like a Harvard Business Report.
Similar, yeah. So we had a couple things that belong to a local entrepreneurs institute. They have monthly meetings. They have socials. And they also offer some, with your membership, some free consulting. So they've looked at our business and done reviews in our business. And these are usually business professors. There's another thing at the University of Pittsburgh, which I think is the one you're mentioning, is their MBA team. They have a contest where they adopt a local company and help them achieve a new goal. And ours was to create key performance indicators for our business and to provide some automated data streams that would come from external sources to our management team. And we had, 3 fresh eyes, MBA students, take a look at our business and give us some feedback. And to this day, I still use one of their slides from their PowerPoint to explain our business because they did it so darn well. So that fresh perspective, it's like, I never would have thought of that. And it was really, really cool to see. The other program I took part in was something that all the listeners should take note of. 10,000 small businesses. It's a program sponsored by Goldman Sachs. They've been running it for 13 years, and they've actually got 12,900 businesses that have gone through this. The program's free. They'll actually give you business classes, like a crash course in an MBA with different modules over the course of about 12 weeks. There are either regional centers. If you look this up, I think it's like 10ksbapply.com. Just look up the phrase 10,000 small businesses. And there's either regional centers where you go and meet in person, or they have remote learning opportunities with a couple of in-person meetings. And I got to take part in the national cohort, which was which is the sort of the founding university for it is Babson University in Massachusetts, in Wellesley, Mass. And some really top-notch people that they bring in from around the country and on their own staff to really quickly get you to the point of understanding better and more about how to run a business.
Yeah, I forgot you mentioned that. I remember you telling me about it when you did that with the 10,000 small businesses, and yeah, that's a great resource. I mean, I run across some guys right now, and especially those who are in the service trades. They go through their apprenticeship programs, and they go through their instruction, and they never learn business management. It's not part of the curriculum. And then eventually, they want to break off and do their own thing, and while technically they know all the stuff they're supposed to know about fixing this and that, they have to figure out a way to run their own business. And so those are great resources.
And it's sort of funny, like we pay a lot of attention to social media, and there's some key groups that I belong to. And some people say, I'm ready to start my own business, but I know nothing about business. It's like, please stop for your own sake.
Yeah. So, and that's, and so I try and encourage some of these guys too, that they've probably been in business for a few years and they want to actually grow. Well, now it's time to, you've made it through for a few years, and you're making a little bit of money. Now you got to take business seriously, which means you have to take yourself out of the field.
Yes. And
that can be frightening for a lot of guys, because they have to replace themselves.
It's not a comfort zone.
Yeah, and especially now with employee shortages in the trades, it can be difficult to do that.
E-Myth Revisited, that's a good resource to read. Michael Gerber book about replacing yourself, and to grow your business by removing yourself from the day to day.
Yeah, that would be
that one right there. Yep.
This is the latest one. It's a great book, and yeah, I've got a pretty extensive business library, so as you might imagine.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what you do for planning. I may not have asked this ahead of time, but talk about what you do for planning, because last time I had a guest their business is growing so fast that they don't have what might be considered the traditional long-term planning structure. Where do we want to be in 5 years and all this other stuff. They're having they're having so much growth that they're getting 400% increase in sales revenue in 2 years and 122% increase in employee count. In addition to all the contract employees that they have on staff. So they're in a situation where their planning is relatively short because they're not sure where things are going to be going. But yours is, I mean, your business that you've been doing is certainly more stable. You are growing faster than most what would be considered the average. So what do you guys do for your annual or quarterly planning to help you get to the next level?
Not enough. And I mean that in the sense that we as I take a look at monthly trends from the past, because our business has some seasonality, being in heating and air conditioning. And then we lay out an aspirational goal for the year. And every year we've done that, we beat the goal. So then we look to, we track the profitability. We're getting a little bit more serious about that, or more specific. And that's where I want to talk about the entrepreneurial operating system, because that's one of the things that we're using now. We're going through a coaching, the traction book by Gino Wickman. Yep, exactly. That's becoming sort of like our mantra or our system. And I think it's working out well. The timing was right for us. What I did earlier this year was start to think about EOS, but really didn't introduce it. And I took and made I think it was a 7-year projection. But then I took a look at the factors that lead to sales for us. And in e-commerce, it's some businesses, it's about phone calls, leads, closing rate. For us, it's website traffic, conversion rate, average order value, those kind of things. So I took a look at things that our team could have influence over that leads to the sales number, instead of just saying, hey, we've got this number out there and it should be this every month. Now it's like, what is that number? Sure, but what drives that number? And what are the things we can do to drive that? So I actually, just before this call, laid out a 9-step budgeting process for a kind of a sub team from our leadership team to take a look at. I literally just sent it out over Teams message. And we're going to meet tomorrow and start to pick through that. But it's like got a lot of these thoughts I've had over the years, but a lot of influence that have come in, recently in terms of how to do that. And I'll say thing about EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, it's about simplicity. So I'm always trying to stress now as a leader, let's start simple at first. Let's not go in and make it too complicated. And in a lot of the meetings that we're having, I'll back people up and say, nope, you're complicating the issue. Put that as another issue, but this issue, it's really simple. It's soluble. It's more important to get something solved than to get a lot of things partially solved.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
There's one of your quotes.
That's a good one. That's yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, we've come from big businesses that and I guess I always wanted to say, you've got to get the blocking and tackling done, to keep moving the ball forward. And there's certain things you can do. It's not, you can't rely on the Hail Mary pass and the plan for the Hail Mary pass doesn't work. You've got to get all the rest of the stuff finished and in order to really you've got to keep the foundation strong, I guess that would be the way to say it. And going down to super simple things, and that's the whole idea behind key performance indicators too, is what are the absolutely essential metrics that you can look at to say, oh, things are going good, things are okay, or things are going bad.
Right. in an EOS, they call it a scorecard, and then there's the concept that everybody has a number. We don't reduce people to numbers, but it's like, here's a way of measuring the performance of your work, and here's a number you're given, and let's figure out how you can get it there, because you're part of a machine that produces results.
Yeah, and that scorecard is different than what under the MBA program traditionally is called a balanced scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the scorecard for EOS is really identifying those particular factors that you can have the influence on, and then really tracking that. That's really a big part of that.
And it's revealing. It helps you understand your business. You need to keep on asking, why does this lead to this? Why does this lead to this? And then you start to uncover through asking why a lot, and leads to this simplicity. And sometimes it's just unexpected, put it that way.
Yeah. So how do you communicate and work with your team? How many employees do you have now?
21.
Okay. So then how do you work with all of them to tell them about change, or things that are going to be happening? How do you go about that and filling them in? Because you have some remote work, but you also have obviously people who are picking and packing. They're
Yep.
in office kind of thing. So how do you go about doing all that?
So I am a remote worker. I live 100 miles from the office. I'm there anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 days a month. But I have a business partner, Eric, who's basically general manager in charge of everything. And up to the point that we got into EOS, it was sort of this dialogue between Eric and myself that kept things on track and kept people informed. I will also do an in-person quarterly meeting with the entire team, and present to them financials, changes, all kinds of things about our performance and what some of our goals are to keep the communication channel open. One thing, just jumping back a couple of minutes, another thing I do for external input is I created a board of advisors, and that came out of the 10,000 small businesses.
Yep.
Profit sharing and board of advisors came out of that experience, were the two things I decided to do big changes. And the board of advisors is, some people call it like a president's board. It's not a fiduciary board. It's our accountant, our lawyer, our banker, and then 3 other people that represent segments of our industry in different forms. And we get them together quarterly, and it's like a dentist appointment. You should do something like this, so we do it and listen to their feedback. I think, however, I'll say up to now, the most important point has been preparing for that meeting stops you from the day-to-day for sure, and makes you back up to communicate the simplicity of where we're going as a business. So simply the exercise of preparing those quarterly meetings for the staff and for the board of advisors is clarifying for us, for me especially.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the thing. You've got a group of advisors, but they wouldn't know how to advise you if you don't give them information.
Right.
Now you have to collect the information, gives them that opportunity, and then reflect on it. They can have an opportunity to reflect on that, and they're going to be asking you questions. I mean, they're essentially mentors and coaches to you and the business, to dig in, and again, it's that outside perspective. Having people to ask a question that you might you might have been too close to realize.
And I feel like it's a fair exchange of information, and it doesn't need to be a compensated position, because we hear from them, but they also hear typical scenarios from us, and a lot of them are in the service industry. Now they have like a reference point for their other customers or clients. So,
excellent.
They can take elements of our story or analysis or review to someone else, and it's involved a couple of like referrals, not so much business, but more like, board of advisor and that kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not a business network. They're
No.
there to help support you, and then you in turn
Right.
wind up helping support them.
Right.
So
you'd asked about the process, so I delved off or dove off. Remote office. I work from a remote office. With COVID, we had analyzed, of course, that web team, accounting, purchasing, customer service could all work from home. We set up technology for them to do that. We've continued to allow that, but do have some common days for everyone to meet face to face in the office. Of course, the people in the, like you said, picking, packing area, receiving, all had to be there the whole time. We did COVID safe things. We had a few people get affected by COVID, but it didn't tear through our company. So we were able to accommodate those changes. We have fairly young staff, and maybe that's where we were lucky too, is that sometimes younger people do better with COVID. So, I don't know if there's any other questions on the remote office aspect of communication.
Oh, yeah, well, it was just the fact that you're remote, and so you've got a plan where you do meet up regularly, you talk about the issues and things that come up with the business, things like that. So certainly for you, you would be hybrid, right? The hybrid model. But I think it's, so it can be done. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people learned over this last couple of years is that traditional, and again, quotes on the traditional business environment can change. And it's just being open to the perspective to see how people respond to it. Some people don't. And I understand that some people don't respond well to remote. There's a lot of self-driven things that you have to do. If you're remote and working on your own, it can be a challenge to stay on task and things like that. And so some people don't want that, and they would just soon be in the office because then they're forced to focus on that. So it's really just trying to figure out where your people are, how to maximize overall performance without, super invasive tracking and things like that.
And I had just a lucky heads up, or foot in the game already. I've been working from home since 1999, so my whole decade with Testo was from home. So I already had that methodology running in my brain. Yeah.
So coming in on the end of the interview here, and I'd just like to ask your what kind of advice you would give to entrepreneurs on how to handle change, both. Change that happens to you. Obviously, when I think of it, there's two types of change that happens to you, like a pandemic. And then there's the other kind of change where change you want to have happen. Mm-hmm. So what kind of advice would you give to other entrepreneurs and business owners to handle both types? What do you do to deal with change that happens to you, and then your process for or advice on making things happen?
Sure. So first, change that happens to us, it should really try to quickly figure out where it's coming from and see if there's anything about it that's under your control, or perhaps an opportunity to pivot. I know some other businesses I met through these various programs, like they were making, plastic partition dividers for classrooms. Then they turned into face masks during COVID. So they took the same equipment, the same materials, and repurposed it for something else. So I would say if something like extreme is happening, get your management leadership team together, perhaps even your whole staff, and and see what kind of clever ideas are embedded there. And I'll say that one concept that I came away with, I don't know if it's actually spoken, but through the 10,000 small businesses, I came away with the idea, which I keep on reiterating in my head, is people won't be amazing unless you think they're going to be amazing.
Oh,
so the way you think about someone can characterize indirectly the way you react to them, the way your face looks when you talk to them, the way you respond to them in the email. If you think somebody is not, and you basically give people a chance. That's the thing. And then I think I'm an optimist for most part, maybe 95% optimist. So it's like, I think there's a lot of people that have hidden talents, aspirations, and it's our goal as leaders of the company to draw those out. For change that I'd like to see happen, or we'd like to see happen, I'll talk about what I did for EOS, for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I bought the book. I looked it up. It was 2017 when I bought the book. I think it took me to 2018 till I started reading it, started to take it a little bit more seriously. And I used it to do things in our company, but I didn't tell anybody that I was using that book. So our core values I developed with that process. I just said, here, what do you reflect on these core values? I started, and this was only like the last 6 months, weekly meetings, team meetings. And it's sort of like, let's just get together every week. And everybody's going to like, hey, we really like this. We get to air things without waiting till they become a big deal. We don't feel like we're alone in solving problems. We like the weekly meetings. Some of the scorecard attributes to start let's create a process whereby we engineer the profit, engineer the business, and look at projections. So over the course of about 3 years, I embedded little bits of what I wanted to do with EOS into the company. And I don't know if I've told everybody at the company this, they'll probably, they hear it, that's okay. But it's like, I tricked you. Because when we got to the point, we said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Let's get someone to come in and pitch it to us. The response was, this book, we already do this, or this isn't too far off from what we've done before. So I think this will be an easy transition for us. So I embedded where I wanted to be inside the company before we got there, so that the human reaction was a little bit like massive change is coming. It's like, no, it's actually gradual change because we've been heading in that direction all along.
Yeah, the planning out of change. The one thing that I've always experienced is, if you think it's going to take 1 year, it's going to take 3. And product developments, it's always been that kind of experience. So whether it's product development, building a business, it's always going to take longer than you thought. And as long as you're working on the little steps to keep that moving forward, it's like when someone says, well, I've increased 1% today compared to yesterday. So then in 3 months, you're 100% better than what you were before. So,
yep.
And it's the kind of thing where since you're able to do that, you're also able to incorporate wins, I would imagine, as things progressed, you're able to celebrate those wins and make those changes. When you've made those changes, you're able to incorporate them into the business. Everybody's already on board, I guess would be the way to phrase that. So, change requires planning, and I guess that's the best way of saying it.
Yeah, and I think you also have to have faith that you can do it. So, be careful about picking the goals of being too ambitious, but also, look backwards in time to see if you can draw out like, hey, we did have this win in this area. We've done some amazing things. Now we're just going to, recharacterize and do this amazing thing.
Yeah, it's if you're growing 10% a year, having a growth of 10%, that's not really a it's already built in. So,
Yeah.
but you don't want to say, well, we're going to do 100% growth without having some foundation to say, yeah, it's a stretch, but it's possible. Yeah, that's, I guess that's the other thing about goal setting is to be a stretch. It shouldn't be what you're always doing. It should be a stretch. And if it's too crazy, nobody's going to believe it. And they can't get there without real solid justification that, yeah, this is possible.
And back to the comment where we sort of started in with outside perspectives, even for EOS, I found one of our vendors had implemented it just through a conversation. So maybe the takeaway there is keep on having conversations about how your business is running with other people. And you may be amazed at what you hear, and that the president of that company, probably 3 or 4 times our size, offered to give a 1-hour review before we went into the EOS of how things are going, how things are for them, just to sort of take the edge off of any kind of change. So I look towards other business leaders who have gone through changes like we're projecting, reach out for their perspective and invite them in to sort of give an honest perspective on how those kind of changes went.
Yeah, terrific. Well, we're at our time. Is there any last minute bits of advice that you would want to add?
I think it's something I forget where I picked it up, but it's like if you have a fear, sometimes it's only about 5 or 10 minutes really before you sort of get over that hump and you're on the other side of fear. And that's where success often lies, is just over that hump of fear. It's confronting things that are very uncomfortable, but you need to confront them, and in your heart you need to confront them.
That's excellent. That's a great way to leave it. Bill, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you. And as always, success to you and the company. Say hello to the guys for me, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
So thank you, Frank. Success to you. Success to you too.
Hello again to everyone. So that was the interview with Bill Spohn. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a couple of pages of summary notes here for you if you want to take a look at these. The Inc. 5000 list, 6 out of 7 years. The need to report profits of at least 100% growth over the last 3 years. So that translates into having an approximately a 33% profit growth every year. And for him, that's for 10 years in a row, because you've got the 7 years plus the 2 or 3 years before that. So that's a tremendous amount of success and a tremendous amount of growth. And so consistent growth is the goal. The pandemic became a perfect storm for his business in a good way. And welcome outside perspectives. He mentioned the local Entrepreneurs Institute, the local university MBA contest. Most people are around those kinds of programs to be able to do that. Talk to your suppliers, create an advisory board. Those are people that the suppliers want to help you. And an advisory board, as he had mentioned, doesn't have to be a compensated position because you're also helping them. Some books and resources. One of the things that he mentioned was the 10,000 Small Businesses. So if you go to 10ksbapply.com, you can see the information there. They do offer a number of free programs. They do take multiple weeks to accomplish. So it's a short MBA program, getting a lot of information to help you on your way. The book, The E-Myth, Revisited by Michael Gerber. He revisited because he's done it a couple of times. Is an excellent book on just being an entrepreneur and how to make the most of that. Traction by Gino Wickman is his thesis on creating the entrepreneurial operating system, and it's a good book. For me, one of the things that I take away is that I read a lot of business books, and I try to take some piece of information away from them that I can add to the business or I can add to a client. Planning, looking at monthly and quarterly trends and create aspirational goals. And as he said, more planning is still needed. Planning for him is not enough. He created a scorecard of key indicators, things that will be an identification for the success of the business, but you also want to find out what is driving those particular indicators. And it's all about simplicity. When we complicate things, it just adds too many variables, and you can get stuck arguing and discussing all the outside variables that don't necessarily apply to the main thing that you want to get solved. As he said, more important to get something solved than a lot of things partially solved. A few quotes from him too. The exercise for preparing reports to the staff and the advisory board is clarifying, because you're talking to people who are not in the day-to-day business. So you have to boil it down to key elements. What's important? What do they need? What kind of information do they need so that they could provide good information as feedback to you? On change that is happening to you, understand where it's actually coming from. A lot of times we have this reaction of throwing our hands up. We don't know where this change is coming from. I don't understand it. Well, for you to be successful, stop, reflect, take some time. What is driving that change? And is there a way that you can benefit and pivot into that change? Perfect phrase, perfect statement, and a perfect quote. People won't be amazing unless you think that they can be amazing. Change that will happen, that you want to have happen, takes time. And as you're doing those changes, embed the little bits of change over time so the staff can accept continual change. Too many times we see that the big corporations announce massive reorganization and change and direction and things like that, and people tend to shut down on that. You want continuous change, and that continuous change is driven by creating, every time you make a small change, embed that into the business and keep it moving. So I really hope that you enjoyed this time listening to Bill. And if there's questions that you might have for Bill, you can forward those to me and I will air them and we can get some feedback back to you. And some more advice to others. Keep on having conversations about how your business is running with the other people, and you may be amazed in what you hear. Look toward other business leaders who have gone through what you're going through. Reach out for their perspectives and invite them in. If you have a fear, sometimes it only is 5 or 10 minutes before you get over the hump and you're on the other side, and success lies on the other side. It's confronting things that are very uncomfortable, but you know in your heart that you need to do them. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I would like to offer to those who are interested a 60-minute one-on-one session to help you get unstuck, to look at ways of creating change for the betterment of both your business and yourself. The process is really just answering 3 questions. We schedule a time, and when we're done with that 1 hour, you'll receive at least 2 ideas that you can immediately use to move forward and break free and be confident in your next moves. Just go to frankspivak.com/unstuck. And with that, thank you for attending. And if there are any questions, we'll take those. And again, my name is Frank Spivak. My role in business is to help with strategy, marketing, and brand through coaching, training, and consulting. And I would like to be your partner in success. And with that, thank you for joining us today.